Welcome to another episode of the Pipeline Podcast presented by A New Earth Project. I am Wes Carter sitting in for Barton Lynch, and I'm just thrilled to death to have Kelly Slater here, 11-time world champion and the greatest of all times. Thank you, Kelly. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, man.
I wanted to cover a few different things today, but over the last few years, A New Earth Project has really asked the surfing community to partner with us to really activate sustainability throughout the supply chain. And Peter King and I initially had this idea that the surfing community in particular was in a position to really be advocates for ocean conservation, to be advocates for sustainability. You being one of the primary leaders in this community, I'd like to hear your perspective on how you view surfing in general, the culture of surfing, and the professional surfing community in the role of advocacy for conservation. I know Outerknown, your company, certainly symbolizes sustainability. I think that's been one of the big ethos with which you guys built that company. So I would just like to hear your perspective about where surfing has been and where you think it can go.
Yeah, obviously as a kid, I didn't think much about that. It wasn't at the forefront of everyone's minds in the 70s and 80s, thinking about sustainability in relation to brands. And surfing was such a niche sport at that time. And obviously it's grown. It's much more mainstream. It's a much broader scope of people who participate in surfing around the world. And it's not just competitive, it's a lifestyle, and it's all age brackets, and it's all men and women and kids and everything. We are at a point now where we're sort of at this precipice of being able to make a big influence across the world because of the visibility of it. And instead of thinking of, look, surfing is small beans compared to a lot of industries.
Sure.
TVs, appliances, electronics, all that kind of stuff. So in terms of, like, with your company for shipping and stuff, those things aren't as sexy to talk about as surfing might be. But surfing is a symbol of those things because we're shipping all our products around the world, surfboards and clothing and everything that comes with it, wetsuits, etc. Sustainability in the conversation and how it can be implemented into different companies. And kind of revolutionized, turned into eventually circularity or just true sustainability. I think surfing is a good place to start because we are like the canaries in the coal mine in the ocean. We're exposed to all the stuff along the coasts around the whole world and all the continents, and we get to see firsthand all the pollution that's in the ocean. And we're obviously traveling, so we have to be mindful of any of the effects we have in different places around the world and how we got there. And these are pretty nuanced and complex conversations to have. But just to mention, with Outerknown, when I started Outerknown, I wanted two things. I wanted us to be as socially compliant as we possibly could with our factories, with our workers, taking care of people. And that, for me, that was first and foremost, is to take good care of people who are building our clothes, which costs more. I've copped a lot of shit for that, for the price of our clothes. But you got to understand, it costs a lot more to actually give people a good work environment, give them insurance, have a clean bathroom, not have them like basically slave labor to make your clothing and shoes.
And certainly they're high quality clothes too. I own a lot and they last forever.
Yeah, and it's high quality, and we back that, and we make guarantees on our clothing. And so it is one of those you get what you pay for kind of thing, but that's not sort of sexy like fast fashion for somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, for somebody who's just used to having a pair of $30 or $40 surf trunks. When you're going to have to pay $95 or $120 or something for something, it's hard for you to wrap your head around it. But maybe you have one or two pairs instead of 4 or 5 pairs. And then environmentally, we wanted to use a supply chain that was sustainable. We wanted to use recycled and organic fibers, textiles, and those cost more to begin with also. So if this is sort of fast fashion and this is where we're starting, we've already put a multiple on the price of our goods before we started with those couple of things. And I was told early on that we couldn't do it. I was told by my old boss at Quicksilver, he said it's impossible. It's not going to be able to happen. Good luck. and it wasn't a negative. He just didn't foresee that we could make the numbers work. But it was important to me because I had read a lot through social media. I had gotten into in late 2000s to say early 2010s. I really got into reading about this stuff and these stories through Twitter, where the average person becomes a journalist and an advocate for these things in different ways. And I didn't necessarily agree with everything I read, but I did hear a lot of compelling stories about the fate of people who make the thing that created most of my sponsorship, through clothing and shoes and the products that we use and get paid to be wearing. So I thought I had an obligation to that, to put my money where my mouth is, essentially take a huge pay cut and not get paid for years. But that's fine because I believe in the end goal and the purpose behind it, and I've been blessed with a lot of stuff in my life, and I have enough, but I also like to push for more for the things that I put my time and energy into. And I don't mean that in a financial way. I mean that in a setting a precedence for myself or for other people, or maybe a pathway to draft that you could do this too. And effectively as a group, as a collective, we could all make change.
So, I mean, for someone like you making the decision to start a company where foundationally it was based on sustainability, treating employees right, like, literally running a company the right way from top to bottom, certainly not something you had to do. There had to be some sense of like, I want to prove to the supply chain, the world of surfing, maybe the world of apparel, that this can be done. Yeah. Was your passion for sustainability, your passion for ocean conservation, the advocacy work that you're doing, did you grow up with that sense of like connection to nature, or is that something that developed over time? Were you as passionate about it at 16 as you are?
No, I wasn't. I was no Greta Thunberg. I didn't have that understanding and knowledge of it at that age.
Right.
I think that's the thing that people have now. Kids have now, is the access to that information and the exposure to that information. I thought nothing of that until I was probably well into my 20s, maybe 30, I don't know. Then I think it became obvious, because you go to a place like Bali or some of the old school days in France, where you see a lot of trash in the water. You're exposed to a lot of the stuff. Some of the beaches in Japan that I've seen are just abhorrent. It's really painful to see the amount of garbage in the ocean. If there's some way that we can effectively change that or work towards changing that, I think if we have that ability, we should do it. So if surfing and the industry and the people within it are since we are so exposed to so many different walks of life and so many different people, we can definitely have an effect. And like I said, surfing's not a giant industry in terms of the whole world, but it can be a symbol for that change. And I think that surfers back in the old days, being sort of throwbacks to hippies and sort of nature child kind of people, it makes sense that we could have a voice there, and that we could also be able to connect and network with people around the world. I heard this thing where Yvon Chouinard, he has a place up in Hollister, and I heard that he had the heads of like Kmart or Walmart or a couple different big box stores at his place. He was hosting them for a couple days, and a couple people got upset with him. This is all like third hand. I didn't speak to Yvon about this, but I heard that a couple of the people there got upset with him. Why do you have those guys here? That's like the devil compared to what you're doing. And he goes, well, if I change those guys, I change the world. Right. And that's the point, like all of us, we can look through just a few people in our phone and go, we're connected. This isn't 6-7 degrees of separation. This is 1 or 2. Right. I know somebody who knows everybody in the world that can make change. And so why shouldn't we all work together, since we all know those people now, because they all love surfing, or at least a lot of those key people do. If they're not the person, they're 1 or 2 people away. So that's the way the world works. It's who you know. And if you make friends with those people and you can plant a seed there to change something and open up a different pathway, I think it's a responsibility for us.
Well, what you're articulating is exactly it was the moment for me with a large packaging company that, we're the largest privately held packaging company in North America, and all of our customers are the most major consumer products companies in the world. And there was a moment for me where I realized, like, I have a seat at the table. And it's like, if I choose to embrace sustainability and not only advocate for it, but help facilitate a change, if I can change the behavior of those companies and help them move in this direction, we have a global impact. And then the intersection with surfing, as you mentioned, like, surfing may not be the biggest industry in the world, but the influence of surf culture is massive. And it's grown exponentially from when I was a kid to what it is today. And so that was the whole idea, is how can we take the soul of surfing and, use that voice, use that energy to integrate with the supply chain to, as you said before, make something like packaging that ain't real sexy, and begin to say, hey, this can be sexy. Packaging can be a brand attribute if you look at it in terms of, we are making decisions that are in line with a healthy environment, with healthy life. All of a sudden, a decision like how we package our goods becomes a lot more important, and people can get passionate about it. And that was the moment that it was like, there is a lane here for surfing and packaging potentially, and the overall supply chain. And I'm real curious, like, from your perspective, how, do you have a real sense of responsibility and other people in the pro surfing community that, as successful surfers who have a legacy, like, we do have a responsibility to speak out about conservation and really activate our voices in our communities to be advocates for ocean conservation? Is that something you feel passionate about? I'm assuming it is, because all of your actions would say that that's true.
Yeah, I feel passionate about it, and I do feel like it's just part of responsibility because we're aware of it.
Right.
And it's kind of that simple. Not everyone has to go out there that surfs and knows some of this stuff and go advocate for it. If you can work it in somehow, that's great to your life, whether it's what you choose to buy at the store or things you choose to say online or whatever. You can have some little bit of influence here and there, but everyone's got their own things they're passionate about and goals in life, and not everyone can fight every battle.
Right.
So, hopefully the right people are fighting that right battle.
We got confirmation from Firewire just this week that they're ready to transition all of their packaging to our fiber-based system. So, moving forward, they'll be one of those.
I didn't know that, but I thought that was in the works. Put it this way, I get a lot of boards shipped to Hawaii from California. So my boards will end up there, get sent over here in a big box, a bunch of plastic around it. And I actually kind of got, I asked them, the guys sending my stuff over, to limit that packaging. And then last year, another one came with quite a lot of packaging. And I do my thing where I recycle it all. I'll separate the plastic and the cardboard and whatever can go in a landfill, blah, blah. And then I'll go to the recycling center and do all that. But it's frustrating for me. So I just finally said, you guys, you just send me the boards and nothing else. Just put them in a bag that I can send back to you, because I was getting so frustrated with the amount of excess. I said, I don't care if they're dinged. I got resin here. I'll fix them up. So I'm not too worried about a pressure ding. I don't care about a couple of dings here and there. I'd rather save all the trash. Look, I'm happy to hear that we're going to start working together in that capacity, and I think that could extend out into other things we don't foresee yet. I think that if there was a kid 5 or 10 years from now who ordered a TV and they were using a packaging that came from a guy who started working with surfers and implemented something from the surf world that went into, like, packaging a Samsung TV or a Sony stereo or whatever it is, all of a sudden there'd be a sense of pride there. Hey, surfers have influence. That's so cool,
Well, interestingly enough, you were introduced to Cruz Foam recently. Those guys out of Santa Cruz, California, that have developed foam that's made out of shrimp
which
shells.
I nearly invested in.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. You nearly invested in that. Okay.
My partner and I were going to take a position at Cruz Foam, and we were looking at it in terms of surfboards for Firewire, for foam.
Yeah.
And it wasn't to that level yet, and we didn't know what that timeline was or how much investment it was going to take to get there. So we passed on it. But from what I understand and what I'm sort of seeing is that that looks like something that could easily be packaging for appliances and that sort of stuff. And the surfing thing could be down the road for.
Well, we officially did make a surfboard, or they made a surfboard that Koa Smith rode at Rockies the other day, and I think it was a little heavy, but
It's
you know,
heavy.
It
It's real heavy, and that was our
perform.
word. But the idea that you're taking the leftovers from the fishing industry and creating a packaging that's totally bio-friendly.
I mean, like the holy grail from circularity is if you can take something that is waste and turn it into a usable product. You know, like it's one thing to create bio-based products where it requires us growing, you know, like from corn or sugarcane or something like that. I actually don't love those products because of the land requirements.
Yeah, I don't like that either, and the GMOs and all that.
All that stuff, you know. But when you look at that Cruise foam, it literally is made out of shrimp casings that are going to be, you know, thrown away anyway. And so the neat thing is
I hate when my shrimp come unpeeled. You know, so I want them to peel.
Right. Yeah. Maybe we can come to your house to pick up your peelings.
Yeah,
We can make you a surfboard from your own shrimp.
That would be cool.
But you know, I mean, I think, you know, what we're looking at is moving into appliances and TVs and things like that.
And again, that's who you know. If you know, or your friend knows somebody.
Sure.
So those connections are really important.
Well, and that's the whole collaboration that a New Earth Project's been about. Exactly what we're articulating is where, like, a guy like you who's got connections to these brands, you have a huge voice in the community and in our world, and we're bringing these products and saying, hey, folks, look at these products. We're trying to activate this innovation that's really good for our environment, you know, to make people aware of them, because at the end of the day, people, the consumers, have all the power, you know, and if they are demanding more sustainable products and they're interested in these types of packaging products or in the apparel that you're making at Outerknown, because people begin to value sustainability as fundamental to their buying decisions, I really believe that's how we shift the world.
Yeah. I was talking to James Wilkes yesterday, who was a UFC fighter who did the Game Changers movie, and he's asked if I want to maybe be involved with this project he's working on, which a number of different people are, like, I won't name because I don't know who all is official yet, but, you know, big name athletes and stuff. And they found a byproduct from another industry, actually from the beer industry, that creates a really good, healthy protein that can be used in different types of foods and drinks, and, you know, as a protein supplement. And it's basically like tasteless, and it's essentially a waste product.
Right.
But now it can be utilized in all these different products, and it sounds super interesting if they can bring it to fruition. I don't know yet whether I'll be involved or not, but just to hear things like that is pretty cool. Like you said, it's a byproduct of something else that can be used and healthy, and maybe create a whole industry from it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, one of the things that, especially in packaging and probably in lots of other industries too, you do have a lot of these innovators that bring these products to market, but they never quite get activated because these are small companies that have an innovative product. They never get to the big...
and they don't know the right person. They
That's
don't have
right.
the right connections. They don't have the, you know, and somebody else can't see that vision because, you know, if you don't have those personal connections, it's like if a cop pulls you over and he knows your uncle, he might let you off from that speeding ticket. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
That's
it's
right.
just kind
I
of how
never
they
got
work.
that lucky, but...
No, you can, I mean, if those can be used for the greater good for people, I think that's how things like social media can be really beneficial. You know, there's a lot of negative downside to that, to the addiction, to the bullying, to the messaging going out to all of us that makes everyone like heighten their insecurities or lack of confidence in themselves or whatever. But when you can take social media and make an interconnectedness between people around the world, that's what the World Wide Web really should be for. Is like technology used for good, and if you can find those common needs and goals and connect those people so they can see that same vision. You know, I'm not saying because you know that guy at that company it's going to happen, but it's definitely not going to happen if you don't know him.
That's right.
And that conversation can't happen, and the vision can't be created. That storyline won't happen unless those personal connections are there. And so that's super important.
No, what you said about social media, we talk about a lot. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, at the end of the day, technology is neutral. It's about how we as humans choose to activate that technology. And one of the reasons I'm actually very hopeful that we can solve some of these big environmental crises like plastic pollution is because we can communicate globally in real time visually. I mean, like, that is a radical tool if it's activated well. And it's one of the reasons that I believe the surfing community can be so influential in this space because, you know, you guys have such a voice and such a presence, and now you have a tool like social media to get that voice to the masses. And if we can bring you sustainable products, sustainable materials that you guys can promote, the influence of that to me can be really, really significant. And so that was the whole idea behind this alliance between the packaging world and the surfing world, which seems like an unlikely pair. But it's all about where we have evolved as a culture, and really looking for solutions to some of these really major problems that we face in this world.
Yeah, I agree. It's all potentially huge positives there.
Yeah. All right, so you're in.
Yeah. Apparently I am in.
Yeah,
I didn't quite know it.
Yeah, apparently
but I was hoping that was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, for the past year I've been really thinking that we'd probably make that alignment, but obviously I wasn't really involved in the chain there, very hands-on, but I'm glad to hear that's going on.
Right on, man. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Really good to see you, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right.